in. Should have got my brushes out first. Hey, well. Let's see if anybody joins first, and then we'll start. I'll start talking or what have you. We'll see anyway. So, we're painting up some wall dollies. Painting up this dude. He is, you might recognise him, he is the Terminator dead guy terrain asset from Space Hulk. I think the last incarnation of Space Hulk it's from. And yeah, this is 3D printed, by the way, so this is the 3D printed version of the dead Terminator from Space Hulk, which is very, very cool. Obviously I've 3D printed it because the miniature itself is quite expensive now on its own. It's like 50 quid on its own. I still do have the original box set, well, original box set of the newest Space Marine. Not Space Marine, Space Hulk set, which came out a good few years ago now. But yeah, I've never opened it. It's got some really good miniatures in it and like terrain and stuff, but I've never opened it. But I found a 3D printable file of this guy, so I'm going to paint him up for a bit of fun. Sorry about the feedback then, I'm just streaming this through the computer as well, so I can see how it's going on. How's my internet doing? Is it a bit laggy? Might have to start it. I might have to start again. Yeah, oh, that's better. That's much, much better. Sorry about that. I don't know why it was being such a pain in the ass. Right, so yeah, this is the dead guy from Space Hulk. This is a 3D printed version of him. I do have the original one. I have the original Space Hulk, which came out like 15 years ago, but I've never opened it because it is worth quite a bit of money. But I can never part with actually selling it, so I still have that in the box in storage. But I 3D printed this one anyway. And I'm going to paint him up as a Lamenter. I collect and paint Lamenter Space Marines if anybody follows me on Instagram. Or has seen some of my older videos. So I'm just painting him up. I've primed him in a Sunset Yellow from Colourforge. Colourforge do these really, really nice spray can colours and primers. So I really like using those at the moment. I was going to use my airbrush, but my airbrush is playing up, which I'll talk about in a bit. We'll get some painting done first and we'll have a chat. So yeah, I'm just going to paint him up for some fun. So yeah, he's primed in Sunset Yellow, and then what I've done is I've done like a mix of two colours. So I've got Uriel Yellow from Citadel, and I've mixed that with Imperial Fist Yellow. And it's like this concoction I like to make and layer it on top of the Sunset Yellow. The Sunset Yellow is very similar to like Avalon Sunset from Citadel. And I've done a couple layers of that over the top with a brush. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some shadows to this. So some shadows in the recesses. So I have Scrag Brown from Citadel in here. Now I've decanted this into a bottle and thinned it down. It's always a good idea if you're using a lot of the same paints or mixtures, if you like pre-mix them, add some thinning mediums or water, you can have them ready to go, then you're not having to fuss around with constantly having to thin them out. So, because I do paint a lot of Lamenters, a lot of my colours are already like pre-mixed with washes, so they're more like a wash glaze consistency, a bit thinner, so they're not like really, really thick, they're ready to go. And I'm going to soft shade this, so soft shade is where you have quite a thin kind of shade, and you don't just wash it all over the model, you kind of pick and choose where it's going. So I'm just putting that Scrag Brown, and I'm just going to put this around the model. What my kind of intentions were with the airbrush is where I'd put the Scrag Brown down first, and then airbrush the yellow over the top. But like I said, both my airbrushes are playing up at the moment, so I was going to paint up some aggressors, some Space Marine aggressors live on video, but I'm waiting for my airbrush to be fixed, or I'm waiting for a new one to come because the company is going to send me one out for review. So I'm waiting for that to come. I'll to fix my airbrush before I paint up the aggressors, because I want to have some like nice thin coats on them. But with this, I'm not as bothered, because like I said, it's just a 3D printed model. I'm not as, you know, asked basically about this if it doesn't look as neat or tidy. But the prints come out pretty good. I'm pretty sure it's probably one of these 3D scanned ones. You know, you can get like 3D scanners and scan an object, and then you can make like a file of it, and then you can print it, or you basically sort out what the holes are and the flaws. That's something I actually really want to get, is a 3D scanner at some point. But I've seen some people use, remember the Xbox 360 had the Kinetic with it at one point in time? I've seen some people actually use the Kinetic from the 360 and use that as a 3D scanner, which is really cool, and you can get those pretty cheap. It's just a bit more faffing around than if you're adding like an actual scanner, but that would be quite cool to try it, because my brother was telling me about that. He's kind of into technology and 3D printing stuff. He's not as into like miniatures as I am, but he does like looking at the ones I paint. And he has taken like an interest in Battletech, because you can 3D print some cool models for that, like Mech Warrior type stuff. So I'm thinking of printing some of them out at some point. We could play some games if we do have time, because I don't really play that often at the moment. I used to play a lot more when I was younger, but it's having the space and time to do it. Whereas if you've got little Mech Warrior stuff, it's not as intense. So I'm just doing some soft shading going around this. And it's just sometimes fun to just paint things up and not think about them too much. And I already know kind of the steps I take when it comes to painting Lamented Space Marines. And I'm kind of a masochist. I really like painting up Lamenters. And they've just released the Blood Angels like Descendants pack. Well, they are going to, I think, next week for the Space Marine 2 game. So you can actually have the Lamenters as an armor set, which I'm looking forward to. Probably not so much playing $3.99 just for the skins of Lamenters, but you know, I paid for the armor on Oblivion back in the day, so you know, it can't all be bad. You can sucker me in. I need to play some more Space Marine. I do like the game. The story to it's a bit meh, but visually it's very cool, and the fact you can have your own chapters and like the mechanicus and things, it's a cool game. I do like Dark Tide as well. Dark Tide's a really, really good game. Oh, thank you for subscribing. It is from Space Hulk, but this is a 3D printed version, so don't call the Warhammer Police, don't call James Workshop on me. I do actually have the original model. I have the full set of the Space Hulk game, but I've never opened it. It's one of those things I was for a rainy day if I ever did have to sell it, and then part of me can't really part with it. So this is a 3D printed version. I'm assuming it's like 3D scans, you know, somebody's taking a scan of the original model. But it's a pretty good detailed model if it is a 3D scan. I just wanted to paint it up for some fun, and I can always print some more. That's the great thing with 3D printing. You can always print more and more. He's going to be painted up as a Lamenter, that's why he's yellow. I'm a sadist or masochist, and I like painting up yellow. And there's no lag, which is good. I do have fiber optic internet, which has been really, really helpful. If you can get fiber optic internet, a lot of the time it's not even that much more than like standard crappy internet. My streets just got it a couple of weeks ago, so it was like, might as well transfer over to fiber optic. And yeah, I'm really glad we have done, because it's been a lot better. I'm downloading some things at the moment, but it's still streaming okay, which is good. And obviously don't tell the internet police that I'm downloading things, so there we are. And to be honest, like, I can't be bothered with like Netflix and Disney and Amazon. There's too many streaming services. They all have advertisements on them now. And most of the time they get rid of the good shows or get rid of things, so You might as well buy physical media or torrent it. Hello, Ben. Yeah, I'm okay. It's just extremely warm in the UK, obviously. It's just like 28 degrees. I've got all the windows open. I've had my suntan cream on today. I've had my Factor 50 on because, despite how Luke I am, like naturally, very, very ginger. I used to be more ginger when I was younger. But I don't tan. I just kind of go red and freckled on my arms. That's the extent of the tan that I get. But other than that, I'm doing pretty well. Mentally doing okay. Physically, trying to work out more. But obviously, when you've not worked out for a few months and then you start again, you feel absolutely shattered. Waking up early in the morning to like go for a run or on the treadmill, and you're like, I can't be arsed. But then I've got a Dragon Ball Z t-shirt, the orange one, and that's kind of my motivation now. When I can't be bothered working out, I'm like, I've got my Dragon Ball Z shirt on. I have to become a Super Saiyan to get into my anti-gravity chamber and work out. Yeah, Ginger plus Northern times heat is a mess. It is really. We're used to working in the coal mines in the hive cities. And then when it's warm, we can't cope. But yeah, thank you for coming in and joining. I might keep doing some more streams. I streamed not yesterday, the day before, and quite a few people popping in, which was good. Just I want to do more live streaming. It'd be good to get a proper setup, where you can have multi-cameras and like multiple angles, which sounds a bit dodgy, but that would be cool to do. But yeah, painting yellow, pain in the ass, but I like yellows, so here we are. You were dying, yeah. It's just like no air. It's just like no wind or anything. It's just heat. The thousand suns. First world problems, I guess. Or climate change, one or the other. I was originally going to do some Space Marine aggressors, but my airbrushes are playing up. So that's a bit of a pain in the ass. I've already cleaned them like all the way out. We're used to 10 degrees. Yep, we are definitely used to 10 degrees. I'm just going to use the hairbrush a second, so it's going to get a bit loud. I'll try and use it away from the camera. But I'm quite brave to be using a hairbrush in this heat as well. It's fucking warm. Warm in here because I have the 3D printers on as well. So I'm gonna add some hairbrush. Yes, I forget my accent sometimes. I'm posh for northerners and common for southerners. So I've got Doombull Brine. Normally I already have this pre-thinned out, but I don't know where I've put that bottle. But yeah, so I'm going to thin this down. This is going to go into the deepest recesses. Generally, I kind of follow the heavy metal recipe for Imperial Fist. When it comes to Lamenters, there's a website which has a list of all the recipes for the heavy metal paints. So yeah, I'm going to sort of follow that. So just in the deepest recesses. Obviously, it is harder to paint on camera because you don't have your miniature right up to your face. And you have to be aware of where the cameras are. That sounds dodgy once again. who were... But yeah, I've got a new airbrush on the way. I just emailed the company out of frustration. I was like, I can't be bothered trying to fix this again. But I did email the original company who sent me the older airbrush. And they're going to send me out some spare parts, which is good of them. But I always say to people, if you do have a bit of a following online, just email companies and see if they will give you anything. The worst thing you can do is just say no to you. Especially if you're into 3D printing, there's a lot of like Chinese companies, like boutique ones, who sell like resin and printers. And if you email them and be like, I'm into 3D printing, please send me some resin. And they'll likely send you some. Part of the UK, Greater Manchester, Lancashire. Another thing I hate Thatcher for. It's Lancashire, not Greater Manchester. I don't have a Mancunian accent, I have a Lancashire accent. Don't ask, don't get. Yeah, exactly. You don't ask, you don't get. If anyone asks why this is so neat, just say, it's grimdark. What? Yeah, it's grimdark, it's artsy. That's always my excuse when I can't be asked painting as neat as I can be. I did contact this company to try and get some brushes. They've like this artist sponsor program or something. And I emailed them like 2 months ago. So I private messaged them on Instagram and I was like, hey, did you get my email or have you considered me yet? Eventually they said no to me, which is fair enough, but it's kind of the way they said it. It was like, oh, we're really impressed about how many followers you are, but you don't really fit what we're after. Like, we're after people that focus more on painting. And I was like, what the fuck? I know, I guess I do post quite a few memes and stuff, but it just kind of was like, all right. Even though I've had like bigger companies send me stuff out, but bragging there, but still, I was a bit like, okay, maybe they don't like my politics because I do like rant on about certain things sometimes. But I find it quite ironic they're on about like artists, but then they posted AI generated slop. So I find that quite ironic. They're on about integrity of artists, and then they were posting AI stuff. So. But then I looked at the people that they were doing the sponsorship thing for, and I was a bit surprised. Like, there was no kind of bigger people. It was a lot of smaller accounts, and mainly women with assets, if you get to know what I mean. I should have probably got my tatas out a bit more. I might have got some free brushes. But hey ho. Nah, to be honest, I sent a civil reply back, but then I kind of slagged them all off to my friends. It's like, what the fuck are they up to? Telling me I can't have your brushes. It's alright. I'll just get some stuff from elsewhere. Alright, we're going to switch it up and do some edge highlights. So I'm going to mix some ice yellow with some Uriel yellow, some edge highlights. It's going alright, besides the fact my airbrushes are playing me up. So, other than that, it's going alright. No, I was just on about this company who I contacted about getting some like free brushes, like review brushes. Kind of said no to me, and they were like, "Oh, you're not really what we're after. We're after like artist focused painters." And I was like, "Okay." And then I looked at like the people they were giving the brushes to for review, and I was like, Right, I need to wear some more low-cut tops then. Yeah. I'll have to check those brushes out. I'm currently using Raphael brushes. I use Raphael and Artist Opus for the more expensive ones, and then otherwise I just use whatever cheap crap that I have to hand. Because when it comes to the hobby, I'm not too bothered about like how expensive things are. I'd rather like champion the fact that people should have the option to have cheaper things because models are expensive. These aren't the easiest of miniatures to paint on camera. I have to remember that for future reference. Yes, the marketing game. Not the person with like 20 plus years experience in painting and years online and having reviewed and worked with quite a lot of different companies, but there we are. That's the thing the things we deal with. I've not heard of the Blackbird lens. What is that? Is that like a precision lens or something like that? If you're still there. If I didn't scare you off with the talk of AI slop and big boobied women. I'll have to check that out though. Mental note. I shouldn't just Google BBL though, because it sounds a little bit dodgy, but I'll remember Blackbird lens. Sounds like something for bird watching. So, how is everyone else? Are you alright in the heat? Or is it too warm for you? Some people like the heat and just sit out in it. I can't. I'm like a vampire. Not very good in the heat. Hello! You have an evening with the doggo. That's good. I know it's warm in Germany. Very warm in Germany. Thanks for just popping in though. Everything helps towards the watch hours. So all about the watch hours. Been melting in the office. With the that's the thing with houses in the UK. They're not tailored towards it being warm all the time. UK houses and offices are made to withstand the crappy cold weather and the rain and all that crap. So when it is warm here. People complain, people in England complain about the heat, but when it's warm here, it is very warm here. Like unbearably warm. 28 degrees, yeah, it's about 28 degrees here. We're sound like old people at a bus stop complaining about the weather. It's just a very British thing, or European thing to complain about the weather. I'll be complaining when it rains probably tomorrow. Although I am looking forward to a thunderstorm. I do love a good thunderstorm. See you around. Yeah, I'll probably chat to you on Instagram and bitch and moan about something. If I'm not sharing memes, I'm bitching and moaning about something or other. Has anyone been watching anything good lately? For my sins, I still watch Walking Dead, well, the spin-offs of Walking Dead. I'm watching Dead City at the moment. You know, the one with Negan and Maggie. To be honest, I do like it aesthetically. It's a cool series. It's set in Manhattan, so New York, and it's got this very like Escape from New York Mad Max vibe to it. It's very like diesel punky. The story's a bit meh, but you know, it's still pretty cool for what it is. And I like zombies and post-apocalyptic stuff, so yeah, YouTube warning, you're more than likely a scam. Unless it's because I've been talking about boobies. Boobies, boobies, boobies. That's probably why. And BBLs as well. Can I kick that person from my chat? Remove. There we go. That's gone. I love a thunderstorm. But yeah, Walking Dead's something I still watch. And the Daryl one as well. The Book of Daryl. That's okay. The only thing is when actors become executive producers of things, they just kind of take it too far sometimes. It's like, I want my character to look really cool, but then forsake the storyline as a result of that. It's going to be frustrating. Like, I didn't like the Walking Dead spin-off with Rick and Michonne. I thought it was pretty crap, to be honest. Didn't really like that, didn't rate that. So I'm switching over to not white, not pure white. We'll go for we've got Wraith. I've got Wraithbone. One sec. Let's grab another paint. So we have Wraithbone White from Citadel. I've got quite a few Citadel paints because usually when I'm painting commissions and stuff, people are like, I want a specific type of paint. But yeah, a lot of Citadel paints just dry out over time. So it's always worth putting them into dropper bottles and then put a bit of thinning medium with them. Otherwise they just dry up. It's a pain in the ass. Because there's certain Citadel colours I really, really like. And then, which is annoying. But that's the thing we deal with the hobby. I do have quite a lot of paints from different brands. I've got like most of the major ones. I do really like working with AK. AK interactive paints are really, really nice if you ever work with those. The only thing is the issue I do have with AK is on the latest paint set, they've been using AI generated art on the box artwork instead of just paying an artist or getting some previous artwork somebody's done for them and paying them. I mean, I don't like AI within the creative sphere. I don't like, because certain people are like, well, it allows you to be creative and stuff. But the problem is, it's not just like an individual use. It's these huge companies and video game companies, and it allows them to shaft artists and just make AI generated slop. I guess miniatures are safe for a little bit, but you know, we'll see how far that goes, especially with like 3D printing and the way that people create the files for it as well. I mean, I don't mind if you're using AI to generate stuff for your own use, or big companies can use it in certain ways, like for editing and stuff. But I'd rather it be reserved for like medical stuff and technological stuff, and not be wasted on creating sloppy crap art. And I don't know why I keep saying that. YouTube warning. We found a video. I'm just gonna try and block that. I'd use on list, but using timeout. There we go. That's gone. That was definitely some sort of scam. It must be that I'm doing better if I'm getting scam warnings popping up. So just filling in the skull and the knee pad, which I don't know whether I'm brave enough to do checker patterns on camera. Probably not. But yeah, AI's my favorite thing. I just find it really lazy. When people say, well, it allows people to be creative who aren't creative, but the thing is, like, anybody can pick up a pencil and a piece of paper. You can't complain about how expensive things are when you literally can just draw. You can literally just use your phone notes to write a story, or pen and paper and write a story. You don't, at the bare minimum, like, anybody can be creative and create art. It's the PR side and selling yourself, which is the thing which you need to have money for or time for. And you're literally just putting some prompts into a machine. And like I said, it's more about the wider implications of it. So eventually, it's alright on personal levels, but then you're going to have big companies using it. Which is the frustrating thing. But yeah, I'm very spoken about AI. And just things in general. I do try and have a bit of a filter, but a lot of the time, if something pisses me off and there's enough evidence against it, I will talk about it. Can anybody still comment? Or is it that YouTube thing like messed everything up? I don't know. As long as it's still streaming, I guess. That's the main thing. I'm gonna add a bit of blue to that. Got pale blue from AK. So I'm just gonna mix that in with that wraith bone. Oh, he's still here. Good. No, it's okay if you're lurking. I just wanted to make sure the chat was still working, that people could like watch what I'm doing, because like that thing from YouTube popped up, but I'm pretty much convinced it's a scam now. So I've like blocked and deleted the account which was posting that. I'm gonna redo them, put some blue over the top. I'm not really bothered about brush marks. Yeah, so because I'm using yellow, the blue will contrast nicely with it. And if you've got like, if you paint Space Marines or any other miniatures, if you've got predominantly one colour, if you put a contrasting colour in with like the white of your robes, you can make it pop really nicely. So if you're painting a lot of like, say, green Dark Angels, if you put some like red in with the robes, or if you're painting Blood Angels, if you put some green in with the robes, just like subtly, it'll make like a nice contrasting colour with that, which is cool. Yeah, I am pretty kind of outspoken on my social medias and stuff. Maybe that's why I wasn't sent the brushes. I don't know. They might have not liked my anti-fascist posts. I don't know. Well, yeah, going back to The Walking Dead, away from AI and ranting about people. I didn't really like the Rick and Michonne one. If anybody's watched that, I just find it really self-serving, because both people were executive producers of that. And like I said, usually I think the storyline suffers if some of the actors become executive producers. And I'm just using the hairbrush, or airbrush. I'm using the airbrush. There's a really good sci-fi series. It's on Netflix. It's called The Eternaut, and it's based off an Argentinian like comic graphic novel which came out in the late 50s. That's a really good post-apocalyptic one. It's about an alien invasion. The Earth gets like poisoned first, like a War of the Worlds, and then these like big bug creatures like Starship Troopers, like Tyranids, start to invade Earth. It's really, really good. So There's only 6 episodes out, but it's already been commissioned for season 2. And I like it because it's got gas masks in, and I love gas masks. And it is an Argentinian production, which is really cool. I love when shows, especially sci-fi, post-apocalyptic stuff, are set in different countries, not just America or England. It's cool to see them in different countries. But yeah, it's a really, really good show to check out if you're looking for something to watch. And there's another good show I really like. Is it High School of the Dead? That's a South Korean zombie show. It's about a group of high school kids, and they take refuge in the high school, and zombies come. But the zombies are like fast zombies, like from Train to Busan and World War Z. And then some people aren't infected by the virus the same. They like transform into like kind of super soldiers. I don't know if it's based on a manga or a book. It kind of has that vibe that it is. But yeah, that's another one worth checking out. That's not me creaking, that's the chair creaking. Alright, so my computer is so full with the memory. Just looking at it. I have so many like printable files stored on my computer. I need to use more USBs. I have so many files. As soon as I see a file as well, if it's like a Games Workshop related file somebody's uploaded of a scan, I go, I want that before it gets taken down. I found a Mars pattern Titan. So that would be cool to print at some point. Mars pattern Titan. But that would be a huge file. Obviously, I'd have to do it in parts. And then obviously I need to think of somewhere I would store it, but it would be cool to print. I also have a file for a Space Marine helmet, primary Space Marine helmet. And I'd love to print one and wear it. It'd probably be better in FDM than resin. But that would be really cool to print out at some point. I have so many things I want to 3D print. But then I have stuff I print for other people. And then it's having the time. Because 3D printing, if you don't do it, it can be a little bit time consuming. Because it's not just the printing. Sometimes you get files and they're damaged, or you need to put like the supports on them, and it's how they're going to go on the plate, and that can take up a couple hours sometimes depending on how complicated they are. I'm just grabbing some wild contrast paint. I'm thinning this down. I like to use contrast paints as washes basically. I don't really use pre-done washes anymore. Yes, it is from Space Hulk. It's the Dead Terminator. However, this is a 3D printed one. I'm assuming it's 3D scanned. I do have the original Space Hulk set that it came with, but I never built it. I just kept that in storage. But yeah, this is 3D printed. And to be perfectly honest, I don't mind people 3D printing like Games Workshop stuff, especially the stuff if it's like out of print. Because a lot of the time, like Games Workshop stuff can be out of print, which is a bit annoying. And then people try and scalp you on eBay. Like this model on eBay, the original one, goes for like 50 quid on eBay. And I was like, F that, I will just 3D print one. Printer goes brrr. Honestly, the people that try and argue against you for the use of 3D printing just tickles me. I mean, you do essentially 3D print your own backlog in the end. Just washing that over the skull. Skull for the skull gods. For the skull throne and all that jazz. I'll just be back in like a minute. Just if you're in the stream, just stay in the stream. I'll be back in a second and reply to comments. I am back. Do I have a favourite band? Yeah, I've got quite a few favourite bands. I do really, really like music. I do really, really like Bolt Thrower. And quite a lot of different bands, to be honest. My main kind of music I do like is like extreme metal, so like death metal and black metal and stuff. That's kind of a genre I've always gone back to over the years. But I do like a bit of everything. I know some people say, oh, I like a bit of everything, and then don't. But yeah, I really like Bolt Thrower. I like a band called Anil Nathrak, if you've heard of them. They're like kind of like a death metal, black metal band. I really like Godflesh. They're one of my favourite bands, industrial metal band. Really, really like them. I've just got Field Grey from Vallejo. I'm just thinning that down and putting it over the road part. Who else do I like? I like Killing Joke. I like a lot of post-punk kind of music. So yeah, Killing Joke I really like. There's a newer band called Chainsaw and one called World Eater. They're very similar to Bolt Thrower, and they have a lot of songs like about 40k and about that type of stuff, like war and things like Bolt Thrower do. I like, in terms of like black metal, there's quite a few bands I do like. I like Marduk. My username on Ondarkendwings is named after a song from Marduk. That whole album is about Lord of the Rings, and that song is about the ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings. So Ondarkendwings is a very kind of fantasy name, so that's why I have that as my username. But I do like other music. I like a lot of soul, R&B, like a lot of like black women singers. I love Nina Simone, Billie Holiday. I love all the stuff that comes on the Fallout games. All that music's really, really good. Like Peggy Lee and Frank Sinatra. I love that type of music. I think that's really cool. Yeah, I'm pretty varied when it comes to music. I do play instruments as well. I haven't played them for a while, but I do really like mainly play like heavy metal kind of stuff when it comes to things like that. So that's just the back piece that goes onto the. So I'm just going to paint that up. I'm going to do the skulls for the skull throne. Just getting Wraithbone white again. The one genre I probably don't like is I don't like ska. You can see my leg there for a brief second. Yeah, I don't like ska music. That's one of the few genres I'm not a huge fan of. I just find it really repetitive and just the exact same thing over and over again. Just coming from someone who likes black metal. I do like a lot of industrial bands as well, so like Godflesh, Ministry, Nine Inch Nails. I like a lot of newer industrial bands like Youth Code are really good. Arthur and Punisher. Arthur and Punisher are really cool. You should check him out. It's just one guy, and he basically creates all these analog instruments. Honestly, I prefer like analog instruments. They look so much cooler as well. They look like really sci-fi, which is really cool. And what else do I like? I've been getting into hip hop more in the past like couple of years. That's kind of a genre I was never really into, but as I've got a bit older, I do like kind of hip hop kind of music. I kind of like more experimental hip hop. So like Jedi Mind Tricks I really like, and what's the other bands? Dalek are really good. They're like a really, really cool hip hop band. I've got Rubber Black and Field Grey there. But yeah, I really like Dalek. Clipping's really good. What's another band I like in that genre? Run the Jewel are cool as well. Billy Woods. I quite like, there's a genre called trap metal, which is like a mix of like metal and rap, but it's not like new metal. It's kind of heavier. That's a really cool genre, like Ghost Meme and stuff like that. But yeah, I like a little bit of everything. I listen to different music all the time. There's some country stuff I like. Some of the new country music's good. Yeah, I've heard of Sleep Token. Not really listened to them that much. I know a lot of people compare them to Ghost and call them like a industry plant and all this other crap, but I'll listen to them more and make up my own mind. I'm never one of these people where I let other people make the decisions on what I like or not. I mean, there's some bands where I like certain songs or certain albums, but I'm not like a huge diehard like fan of them. I love doom metal as well, like bands like Electric Wizard and Saint Vitus. They're really, really cool. Like, I really like doom metal. I think the most bands I've seen live are like doom metal bands or like grindcore bands. Just smaller bands where they just, play in small pubs or venues. I'm not really a fan of seeing like huge artists in big venues. I prefer small, sweaty, like dingy gigs to like big venues. I think one of my favorite like metal festivals is called Damnation Festival. It's like a smaller English festival, and they usually have some. Sometimes it has some bigger bands like My Dying Bride have played, Electric Wizard have played, Carcass, Godflesh have even played as well. Just using the hairbrush, the airbrush. And I like a lot of film soundtracks as well. Like a lot of older horror movie soundtracks are really, really good. I just realised I put a blob of black on the helmet. I'll fix that later. But yeah, horror movie soundtracks are great. Like, there's a band called Goblin who are worth looking up. And they've done loads of famous horror movie soundtracks like Dawn of the Dead and Suspiria. They do like really progressive kind of rock metal, like synthesizers and stuff. Their stuff's awesome. I mean, like, I'm a big fan of horror movies anyway, especially like the older B movies, like the old like the genre. It's called Grindhouse. Like these old low budget horror films, and usually they have really good soundtracks. I mean, a lot of the time the films are kind of crap, but like the atmosphere and the music is what makes it. It always makes me laugh. Like, a lot of these films were banned, in the 80s, like the Video Nasties. All these films were banned, and by today's standards of horror, like the gore and stuff, like some of the films do stand out the test of time, but you can still see they're a bit dated. And a lot of them have some, other cool soundtracks. Like, sometimes horror movies don't even have soundtracks that suit horror of that era. Like in the 70s and 80s, they were like these jazz kind of funky kind of soundtracks. Like the soundtrack to, say, Cannibal Holocaust, which is like one of the most infamous like gory horror films from like 70s, 80s, that has this really weird, funky synthesizer kind of soundtrack to it. I love that movie, by the way. And then Day of the Dead, the sequel to Dawn of the Dead. that has like this weird Caribbean synthesizer kind of soundtrack to it. Because the film, like, it's a Ramiro film. It's one of the lesser known zombie films he made, but it's my favourite film. Probably my favourite film of all time. Originally, it was supposed to be like a huge, big budget film set on an island. But obviously, budget constraints and story constraints and stuff, creative constraints. So they still kept the soundtrack, even though the film's set in an underground missile like silo. So you've got this like really gritty, dark film, and then it's got like, this cool Caribbean like synthesizer beats going on. They're grabbing Field Grey again, just by itself, with a little bit of that pale blue. But yeah, I do have quite a big collection of like vinyl records. I've been collecting them for a long time before they were kind of popular because I'm a hipster. But to be honest, a lot of like punk and like metal bands were kind of ahead of the time with releasing physical media. Like they would release vinyl records and tapes and stuff, like limited edition ones. So I have quite a few of them and some older ones. I don't get them as much now because vinyl records have gone very expensive. You're looking like £40 to like £60 for one record, but I guess it supports the artist. But again, expensive, and then having the space for it. But I have quite a few cool like limited edition ones of them, and the Cannibal Holocaust soundtrack as well. But even in the charity shops now, like vinyl records have gone expensive. I used to get quite a few from charity shops. I have quite a few of the Fallout soundtrack ones, like the Ink Spots, who do the main soundtrack to kind of Fallout, the infamous Maybe song. Well, I do have a record player, but I've been like changing things around at the moment. So I want to get a desk in my room and put my record player on there, and I can play some of my records. I do have a Bolt Thrower record as well, of the infamous Realm of Chaos one, like an original edition. I'd love to get that signed by like John Blanche or someone like that. That would be really cool. And I have a lot of tapes as well. Like I said, a lot of metal bands put out tapes. So I have some weird collector's edition tapes. I remember once I got into this like Brazilian grindcore band, and they sent me out a tape along with some other bits. But they put it in a hazardous waste bag. I'm surprised it didn't get like stopped by customs, but this is like talking 15 years ago, so it probably got flagged these days. But yeah, that came. And I do have band patches as well. I still have this jacket, but I don't wear it as much now because it's a bit worn out. But I have like a battle jacket with loads of bands on. I have loads of patches too. I'd love to do a new patch jacket and get like a big Ondarkendwings logo on the back, and then some bands and stuff that I like. I have some like obscure patches like of Twin Peaks and different shows that I like, so it'd be cool to do the patches. Obviously I'm not very good at sewing, so I'd have to get someone to do it or see if there's somewhere that would do it for me. But that's the thing I really like about like metal and punk, like the community around it and the merch and stuff. But I'm kind of like that with music. If I like a band, I like a band. I don't really care how popular they are or the hype around them. And I always like when bands I've liked for a long time get really popular. There's an artist I follow called Backwash, and she does like this kind of mix of black metal and then like rap metal and stuff. And I followed her for a long time on social media, and now she's kind of popped off and become quite famous in the underground, and I guess sort of mainstream to some extent. But she follows me back on social media, which is awesome. I'm more happy about that than like any big influencer following me. It's just the fact that, you know, one of the artists I like follows me back and they've become pretty famous. That's what I kind of always like about supporting smaller artists. It feels more like a community rather than just being a faceless number in a crowd. But yeah, I do like music. I do listen to music nearly every day. We got some AirPods. Well, not actual AirPods, like wireless headphones. I was kind of against them at first, but now I really like them, especially when you're working out. You can listen to music, there's no wires. So that's been really cool. And I can talk for hours about music and films, especially horror films. I love anything like that. I guess a lot of that kind of goes in hand, because quite a lot of people who I'm friends with in the Warhammer community are into like horror films and heavy metal and stuff, which has been cool to kind of talk to people about that and meet people and talk to people online about things I'm interested in. Might do some red. I don't know what colour. Oh, gold. I can get some gold. Just grabbing some gold from Dexter. Dexter, one of my favourite brands that make metallic paints. They do the best metallic paints in my opinion. It's kind of mad how like big the Warhammer community's become, especially online now. Like I remember when it was just like forums online, like Daka and Reddit. But it's cool now. Like Instagram and YouTube is huge. Because when I first started painting in like the early 2000s, there was no like tutorials or really community online. That's kind of grown out of that. I have to do gold or red. Red might have looked better, but do gold for now. Especially like painting tutorials, because all you had really for painting tutorials was like old white dwarfs. Used to have them in a lot more. And the occasional how to paint Citadel. But I kind of learned to paint more from traditional like scale model artists. I still think it's worth looking at other arts as well. Like, that's how I learned to paint too. I'm not painting very well with this at the moment, but I'm not too bothered. I'm just kind of painting for fun today. But yeah, a lot of techniques that come from traditional art transfer over to miniature painting, like underpainting and OSL and things like that. And yeah, a lot of concept art can be really helpful, like Frank Franzetta and people like that. All their artwork's really influential on miniature painters. Because I've got a recent video out where I talk about Victoria Lamb. He was the first woman to win a Slayer sword, Golden Demon Slayer sword, and she was a theatre set designer for a time. So you can kind of see the influence of that on her painting, because she does a lot of dioramas and they're really composed really well. Well, a lot of like really good artists as well, award-winning painters, are like artists in other fields as well. So I think a lot of those skills are kind of transferable rather than just copying tutorials you find on the internet. But it just depends what you want out of your painting, and it's fair enough if you just want to paint from a tutorial. But I think it's more rewarding to find different techniques and find your own voice when it comes to painting, which I've always tried to do. Because everyone then will just try and paint the same, whereas You can have your own unique voice. I do think, obviously, miniature painting is art. It has become more and more of an art form, especially with like the sculpts you have these days. I'm just getting white from AK. I mean, some of the dioramas people build, like Roman Lapat's a really good example. He's like an artist outside of Warhammer as well. And I love like he makes all these elaborate dioramas in picture frames and stuff. And he's become like really well known. And it's cool to see people who don't just do like box art and have your metal art become more prevalent in the hobby. It'd be cool to do some miniatures in a frame, like a shadow box frame. I'm thinking of doing that, putting one up on the wall. I've got an idea for a space marine with a flame gun firing at some Tyranid armor gaunts or something like that, or Ripper Swarm, and then having like some flame effects coming off that. That would be really cool. Because I really like doing dioramas and like vignettes and stuff. It's just having the time and then putting those together. Because making content can be consuming. Content for the content god. Likes for the like god. Alright, jazz. But I don't just paint Warhammer, I just paint one of the miniatures I like. And I do like doing like big busts and dioramas and stuff. I really like the Fallout miniatures as well. They're from a company called Modifidius Entertainment, and they do a lot of really cool miniatures like Fallout. They have Mass Effect ones, which I have some of, they've sent me. And they do Star Trek. They're really cool. I've made quite a few dioramas out of their miniatures, Fallout dioramas. I think those were some of the first miniatures I posted online, actually, with the Fallout ones. And they do a lot from the game and a lot of the expansions. So they have like a Nuka World expansion, New Vegas expansion and stuff like that. So it'd be cool to get some more of the miniatures. But they do have a lot of 3D printable files as well, like the computer screen terminals and stuff like that, which I think is awesome. I'm just neatening up the yellow because it's messy. Which I'm not too bothered about. I'm just having fun painting this up today. But the games I'd like to see as miniature games, I'd love to see a Bioshock game. Some really like high quality Bioshock kind of miniatures, you know, like big scale 3D printable ones. That's one of my favorite video games of all time is Bioshock. There's a Bioshock novel as well called Rapture. It's like a prequel to the Bioshock game. That's really good. I'd like to read that again, actually. Been reading quite a bit at the moment. I'm reading the Belisarius Call book at the moment, which has been pretty good. I don't like the kind of war-heavy books of Warhammer. I like the ones where more of a story about the characters and stuff. The Belisarius Call one's been pretty cool, and it jumps back between like when the Heresy's just finished up to the point where he's making the Primaris Space Marines. So they obviously had to create some lore behind why there's Primaris Space Marines, not just buy these brand new Space Marines. Honestly, I've grown to like the Primaris Space Marines, to be honest. I think they're pretty cool now, looking at the scale of them. But the only thing is they do lack a little bit of personality. Whereas I think the older ones had more. I miss flags as well. I miss when they used to have loads of banners and flags. There are some cool 3D printable ones though I'd like to do. And some like Lamenta ones. I've just finished reading Dead Men Walking, the Death Ops Cree book. That's really good if you've never read that. That's like an older Black Library novel. And that's good, even though it's like a war heavy one. It's about the people who live on the planet. And it kind of shows you how brutal the Imperium can be, even to its own citizens. I've read quite a few of the Horus Heresy books. Obviously, I kind of pick and choose the ones I want to read now because there's that many of them. I don't think people like bother reading them all. Hats off to you if you have, or attempting to. But I really like the first 5 books. Fulgrim's probably one of my favourites. Paint them. But yeah, I really like Fulgrim. That's one of my favourite books. The Horus Heresy series. Got Evil Eye Red. It's like corn red type of thing. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne. But yeah, the Fulgrim one's good. I like Slanesh, not for the obvious hentai reasons, but I like Slanesh because it's all about pride and people's emotions and things like that. And that's the aspect I like, and I love the fact that the ship has all these artists and sculptors on it. Not to spoil it too much, but they go to like this temple, and on the temple this alien race worships Slanesh, and that's what corrupts Fulgrim. And everybody who went down there on the ship gets corrupted, except this one guy who's a sculptor on the ship who doesn't go down, so he doesn't get corrupted. And then the ship gradually gets more and more like messed up, because obviously they're obsessed with like experience and ecstasy, so the ship gradually gets more like effed up over time. And he doesn't know about like what's gone on. She's funny. There's one particular woman, I think she's a sculptor or a painter. No, she's a painter, and then she starts like killing people on board and using like their excrement and their bodily remains to like painting, and then she creates this like Dorian Gray painting of Fulgrim. It's a little bit cheesy, obviously, with a lot of Warhammer novels are quite pulpy, but pulp fictiony, but it's still a good book. It's one of my favourites. I've read it a couple of times. Like the Fight of Einstein or whatever it's called is good as well. But then some of them just get a bit boring and a bit convoluted, and then like the canon kind of goes with them. It's funny, like the Horus Heresy has become like a huge thing, and then at one point in time it was just kind of a slight thing in the codexes, and it was just originally created to pad out models in a set. So instead of having to print all the models for a starter set, they were like, let's just make half of them heretical, and then that's kind of gone into this even more elaborate storyline. Because you only get the first Horus Heresy book in like 2005. I remember when that came out. I've been in the hobby that long. But yeah, that's a really good book. Fulgrim. I really like the Warhammer crime novels as well, if anybody's ever read those. There's a new series of books. It's just set on this hive world called Varagantua. And on that hive world, it's like a Blade Runner-esque kind of place. And it's all about police officers and detectives and like a grim noir kind of style. And they're really fun. They're a little bit pulpy and a bit cheesy, and you can obviously tell it's been inspired by like Blade Runner and cyberpunky kind of stuff, but it's fun seeing it from a different perspective, and there's quite a big like population of Mechanicus on that planet, so you get that kind of cool thing. And there's one of the novels is called Flesh and Steel, and it's about this Mechanicus woman who works with a detective, and they go to the Mechanicus district, and it goes into like horrifying detail about how they create the Mechanicus and the Servitors and how like effed up that is. And I always like books that show the like darker, grimmer side of the Imperium, not just like glory to the Space Marines. It's more like how effed up it all is. The Warhammer horror novels are good as well. The Wicked and the Damned's a good one. That's like an anthology one. Some really good stories in that. One of my favourites within that is about these Imperial Guards in a trench, and they're like a stalemate in the wall. They just keep bombing each other, not realising they're actually bombing their own mine back and forth. That's kind of the horror of it. That's really cool. But I like the anthology books. They're really good. Necromunda books I really like as well. Necromunda's a little bit cheesier, but again, it's nice to see like people in the hive worlds and how they survive, and the upper and lower class people. That's a bit cheesy, but they're a fun read. There's one called Fire Made Flesh, which is really cool because it has like about the Dillac, you know, the weird alien people like in Dark City. Dark City is a great sci-fi movie. If anybody's not watched it, fortunately it came out at a similar time as The Matrix, but it's basically about these aliens which control people. So in the day it seems normal, but at night when people, if they do wake up or get out of the coma, they realise like they're being controlled by aliens. But the Dillac are very similar to the aliens in that. To be honest though, a lot of Warhammer like steals from like existing IP. Like Starship Troopers definitely heavily influenced the Tyranids. Like the Tyranids never used to look like they did. And then Starship Troopers came out and it's like, oh no, the Tyranids look different. It's quite funny. I'm gonna sketch out the checker patterns because I'm a sadist. I'll just be a second. I haven't read many of the Warhammer fantasy novels. I've read a few of them. Is it Thaddeus Tullman? He's like a witch hunter. I've read his anthology. Some of the higher ones. I've not really read any of the Age of Sigmar ones. I prefer 40k. I've always been more into like sci-fi, but I do like some Age of Sigmar stuff. So I've got a pencil here, and I'm using the pencil just to sketch out like the checker patterns on this dude. I don't know if I'll be able to do the checker patterns on camera, but we'll see. But yeah, if you use a pencil when you're sketching things out, it just makes life so much easier. I like the Fabius Bile books as well. One of my favourite characters in 40k. Like the Mad Dr. Frankenstein character that he is. He has some really fun. He has a trilogy out, which takes place between like the beginning of 41st millennia and then up until like the Primaris kind of Space Marines. Because Fabius Bile has like loads of different clones of himself, which is really cool. So he can't like really die. Probably better with a smaller brush. This part. But yeah, Fabius Bile books are good. Some other good books. I like the Fulgrim ones. I like the Primarch books that they brought out, whether it's about an individual Primarch or before the Heresy. The Fulgrim one, well, that's good. I really like the Fulgrim that they brought out in plastic. I'll have to see if I have a 3D print of that. I like big models, it's just having the space for them. I've got that Glutton cart from Age of Sigmar, you know, the Slanesh one. I love that model, but just finding time to paint it because it's such a huge model. It'd be good to paint it sometime. Like, if I did do a proper Age of Sigmar army, I'd probably do Slaanesh, because I have a couple of Slaanesh kind of models. I do like the Age of Sigmar models. I think they really needed to change up Warhammer Fantasy, because it was kind of getting same old. And at least with Age of Sigmar, they can make new sculpts. They don't have to rely on, like, existing IP. They can just make more elaborate things. It's like with the warbands as well. Like the smaller warband, like the Kill Team version of Age of Sigmar. They had some, like, really, really cool models for them. I think I'm going to change that to red on his Aquila. And then once I've painted that, I'll probably call it quits for tonight. I've not got any like Warhammer Old World stuff. I already have quite a lot of models, original models from when Fantasy was around. But that's the thing, Warhammer. You don't have to play the new editions or whatever. You can just play the existing ones that you want to. So I never got when people got really pissed off when they changed Warhammer Fantasy to Age of Sigmar. It's like, well, they're not getting rid of your like models or your books. You can still play with those and play the games you want with the people you want to. But it would be nice to play again at some point in time. Or maybe some skirmish games. But the Fallout Wasteland Warfare skirmish game is really good, if you've ever checked that out. Right, I'm going to call it quits there. My camera's going to die on my phone. And I've kind of had enough painting. It's very, very warm at the moment. So thank you for watching, anybody who has tuned in. As always, remember to enjoy your hobbies for yourself. And at the end of the day, they're just war dollies. I'll see you in the next stream.